Hi, and welcome to the Virgin River Cafe Rewatch podcast. Good morning, Gigi.
Good morning, Tracy.
And how is your morning going so far?
It is lovely. We are finally in, I think, the beginning of the weather cooling down. So that's lovely.
Yeah, I feel that too. It's very overcast here, which I do appreciate. We're in our here in Southern California. October can feel like second summer or fall. It's like spin the wheel and see what we get. Because yesterday it was 90, and today I
hmm
think it's like 72. So I don't know, but I'm
Because
enjoying it. I'm liking how we're starting to feel like we're heading into fall.
the last 4 days we've had 90 something and
Yeah,
100-degree weather.
yeah.
Yep, that's Northern California for you as well.
Yeah, it's the same thing down here. Oh my. So we're gonna try to embrace the nice weather, which I don't know. I think of overcast as nice when it's been hot and sunny for days and days and days. So I'm gonna call it nice today.
Okay,
So what is your caffeinated
a
beverage
drink.
today?
It is an espresso macchiato.
Oh, a
So and it,
macchiato. Nice.
and it and it's hot.
Of
So
course.
just so you know,
I
of
know.
course.
I don't even question it anymore. I don't even ask. I assume. I just you're not supposed to assume, but with you and coffee, I just assume you have a hot drink.
And with you, I always assume it's a cold drink.
Yes, it would be
So,
you'd be like, "What is why are you drinking something? Is there something wrong? Are you okay? Are you feeling all right today?" Cuz yeah. No, today
yeah,
today I have a caramelized coffee with some pumpkin cold foam. I decided to
nice,
have a
nice.
little bit of the fall, but not too much. I was getting a little overwhelmed by pumpkin lately, so I
Mhm.
needed to take a little step back.
We'll step back.
And we got
Okay,
to
yeah.
pace ourselves. We don't want to get too overwhelmed. I mean, we're not even in November yet. I mean, it's
Uh,
it's okay. We can do it.
yeah,
We got this.
yeah,
We
I'm
got
sure
this.
you can. I look forward to seeing what else you come up with.
Oh, who knows? Every day's an adventure, right? All
Yes, it
right.
is.
So here we are. We are knee deep in season 2. We have some
Yes, we
really
are.
season 3 really gets things going. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We introduced some new characters in season 3. That's going to be a lot of fun. But as we finish out the last 4 episodes of season 2, there's a lot that happens. A lot that happens. And as we
Yep.
always say, every episode is a cliffhanger. So let's see where this one takes us. Let's get started.
Season 2, episode 7, Breaking Point. Hmm.
Okay, so as we ended the last episode, Mel and Jack walked up on the police at night, seeing some police activity and saying, and the sheriff said he found a dead body. So from that, it says, after police find a body in the woods, Preacher worries about the implications, and then Charmaine and Jack discuss a birth plan with Mel. That, oh my, the fact that we've gone from we don't like you, we hate you, we've fired you, and now we're friends and having a birth plan. I mean, with Mel and Charmaine, it's a lot.
uh,
It's a lot. But I always said it would be difficult for them to be friends, but in some weird way, it's like you feel like they're headed in that direction, and not like friends. Like I would not. They're not gonna like get together and have wine. Like I don't see that, but I see them as more than tolerating each other. But once Charmaine gets it that Jack is not hers anymore, once she gets past that, I feel like they can have at least an acquaintance type situation where
well,
they can not more than tolerate each other's company. I feel like that's where it was headed when things started changing about now, when she's respecting that Mel is a professional and that she's doing what's best. It's like seeing past all the stuff. So,
hmm
I guess we'll see, won't we?
yes, we will.
All right. Well, here we go. So we start off the episode at the clinic, and Mel is knee deep in delivering a baby. And this
Oh,
young couple are just having a time, and she's just talking her through it. And the husband's like, just remember to breathe. And she, in birth, yelling at her, I know how to breathe. Because men always say the wrong thing. Just stand there and be supportive. Like, isn't that what they always tell them? Just stand, hold their hand, do whatever they tell you to do, and just be supportive. So Mel's coaching her through. Doc is there too. Doc's helping. And they're just making sure that, she's doing everything she needs to do. And they're going to push out one more contraction. The baby's almost out. And here comes a baby. Mel's kind of looking a little worried. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, we hear a baby cry. So now everybody, sigh of relief.
It's a relief, yes.
Sigh of relief. Everybody's happy. She takes the baby. Now, I remember reading somewhere, or an interview or something, where Alex Breckenridge, who plays Mel, said that it was funny how, she's a nurse practitioner and she delivers. She goes, she probably in her life never spent that much time in that position with people's legs up in the air and pretending like she's delivering babies. She goes, it's all fake. She goes, but it's just like, it's a weird place to be.
Awkward. It's awkward.
It's an awkward situation.
I mean, if you do it for a living, that's one thing.
That's totally different. But if you're pretending.
But exactly, if you're pretending, because I mean, I've done that a number of times. So for me, it doesn't seem like an odd thing, but right. I can well imagine for her.
As an actress, that's like, okay, yeah. I'm just going to sit here and pretend I'm going to catch a baby from between your legs. That's awesome. Let's do that for 3 or 4 times a season. So the baby looks good. They're saying the baby's healthy and it's perfect and everything is great and everyone is happy. And I mean, knowing Mel now, knowing that she can't have kids and that her whole situation, it's almost even like how does she do this job? Like, like it's one thing to like have to be in that position and be an accountant, or something that doesn't involve a bus driver. Like but to like your job is to bring babies into the world and you can't have your own, like that. But that just takes a special kind of person. Like it really does take a special kind of person to be able to do that.
And we know Mel is a very special kind of person because
absolutely,
as you and I have said before, the amount of things that she has tolerated in this town, definitely most people would not know how to cope with that.
Girlfriend has a suit of armor a mile thick, that's all I gotta say. And the thickest skin ever. I mean, she has her moments, and God love her, she deserves every one of them she wants to take, but man. So now we're back at the bar, and the new guy, George, I think his name is, he's cleaning up, and Preacher's setting out some pies and setting up for the day, and because it seems early, it's early in the day, there's no customers yet, and Jack, he's coming from upstairs, he must have stayed over. Now, okay, where does Jack live? I mean, I know later we see more clarification of that, but
I think he has 2 places. I think because he owns the bar, because I think there's a point somewhere along the line where we find out that he built this from scratch.
Yes.
I think that was one of the things.
He moved there he bought this house, turned it into a bar, and that was like, that's his passion.
And and so he basically built this place. So, so for instance, like when she went upstairs to change when she got soaked in the rain.
Right, and that's his room, but
that's his room.
Does he live there or does he stay there? Like it was never said. It was never explicitly clear, I mean, it's possible he has a house.
He exactly. He may split his time between his house, and the room that's upstairs, because if he wants to catch some Z's
or he's just tired and doesn't feel like the 5-minute drive home. I mean, who knows?
Exactly. And you're right about the 5-minute drive home because it's probably 5 minutes.
I mean, you never know. I mean, they're kind of in the wilderness. I mean, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever. And they always say, well, if he hooks up with Mel, she's just around the corner to the left is Jack's bar from her cabin. So, there's
That's
always
true.
that.
That is quite true.
Just in case, put that in your pocket for later. We'll put a pin in that for
Mhm.
later. So
Yes, we
he's
will.
so he's coming from upstairs, and like
And he
he's
doesn't
buttoning his
look.
shirt up, and yeah, he's not
Yeah, and
looking so good.
he's not looking so good. It looks like somebody had a little too much to drink last night.
Yeah, well, he was with Mel. The guys had just left, the whole bit,
Mm,
and
yeah.
Preacher, who is always looking out for him, he's like, if you're having trouble sleeping, I got an herbal supplement because that's Preacher. And
Mm.
Preacher's like, don't even go there. He goes, yeah, I'm just looking out for you, man. And Jack, he just takes care of everything. And he'll just, I'm good. I'm good. And he was like, Jack's like, I got to go over to the clinic for a little bit. Shouldn't be more than a half an hour. And I'll be back. And Preacher's like, is everything okay? And he was like, well, me and Charmaine have to put together a birth plan. Now, it's how she explained yesterday, like for them yesterday, when he got freaked
Hmm.
out at the seeing all the baby stuff, that
Right, right.
that they put everything together and the aunt bought everything before the end of the first trimester, which means she's not
Yeah.
quite at 12 weeks. Isn't
Hmm.
it a little early for a birth plan? I mean, I don't know when
It
people
is.
normally do that, but it just seems like that's something that should be done at the end of
Mm,
the second trimester.
well, it's, some people, as you and I are fully aware of because of my own clientele,
Yeah,
some people are on the ball because they want to have all their ducks in a row.
I get that.
You know, they, so with the fact that she's carrying twins,
Yeah,
may be the reason why they're
possibly.
having an early birth plan.
And it was
That way,
Doc
because,
that said to do it.
right,
It's not like
right,
I mean, I could see if Charmaine would have said it because that's just
right.
one more way to
Because,
get Jack alone and involved.
well, also the fact is that because she's having twins, there's a great likelihood that these babies are going to come early,
Oh yeah,
and
very
these
often they do.
babies are probably going to become via C-section, maybe, if she
Generally,
decides,
that's
you know,
not uncommon. Sure,
if she, it's not uncommon. I mean, there are lots of moms who give birth to twins
it's just
vaginally.
harder.
But
It's so much more tentative.
right,
But yeah,
and but it's not uncommon for
right.
them not, as I've always said about my profession, the problem is that we are so stuck in a system where doctors and midwives and doulas are all afraid of getting sued.
Mm-hmm.
So
So it's
the easiest
CYA
way
all the
is,
way.
yeah, exactly.
No, that makes sense.
So
That
yes,
makes sense. I mean,
yeah.
and it was like I said, it was Doc's suggestion. It wasn't like
Hmm.
Charmaine or Mel or Jack even said this is
Hmm.
something. It was Doc. And
Hmm.
probably because, one, you don't want to get sued. You don't want anything to happen. You want to have everything planned. And while everybody's in a good mood, like you don't know if something's going to change. Let's just get this figured. Let's get it all figured out. Let's plan ahead because they live in a small town. And I mean,
Yeah.
even Grace Valley is like an hour away. A lot of these places are an hour away. If there's ever an emergency, they've got to
Hmm.
think about how they're going to handle that. Would it
Yeah.
be safer for her to spend the last month of her pregnancy closer to the hospital? It's like, what does she want? We don't know all of that. And she does not want, like she said, she doesn't want to go to the hospital. Well, babies are usually born in a hospital, so that's going to be a conversation they got to figure out. And
Hmm.
that's going to be interesting, especially
Yeah.
with twins. I mean, do you really want to have a home birth with twins? That's seems a little scary. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, you can people who've done it. It's
It's
just that
just
you
why would
you
you risk that? That's the way I look at it. I don't know, because I mean, both of them ready to come out head first. That just seems like that's iffy.
yeah,
I
well,
don't know.
it can be done. It's just, yeah.
So preacher's like, take your time, do what you got to do, and then the sheriff walks in. He probably was up all night, which he says I was up all night because remember he was out in the wilderness dealing with the body that was found. And he
Yep.
explains to Preacher that he found a body near Alder Grove, wherever that is. Preacher's like, oh, now he knows there's a body out there. So he's like,
Hmm.
pretending to be interested, but not too interested. You gotta play it
Right,
cool,
right.
Preacher. Gotta play it cool. And he's like, oh, so any idea who it is? And he goes, oh, well, we're not going to know until we get the coroner's report. So he's just going to get the guy some coffee and some breakfast. Preacher's just going to play it cool and wait for the news to come in. In the meantime, we're back at the clinic. They've now finished delivering the baby. They're kind of cleaning everything up. And they've been up since 3:30 in the morning. So Doc asked Mel if she would like to take the rest of the day off.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, no, I'm good. And he goes, how about you? And he's like, I haven't napped in 70 years. I'm not going to start now. So
Sounds familiar.
yeah. So today, now remember, this is the day, this particular day is the day
That's
of
right.
the anniversary of her
the
husband's
anniversary of his
death.
death.
And so Mel is kind of like, okay, you want to send me home, take the rest. Did Hope, it's like, did Hope put you up to this? Did she say, take it easy on Mel today? Because remember what today is. So she's being very inquisitive. And he does say, well, yeah, Hope did mention that today might be tough. And she flatly says, I am exactly where I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
I want to work. Keeping busy will probably help her
Yes.
day. And Doc's like, yeah, well, Hope. She's just concerned. She's just worried about you. She just wants to make sure you're okay. She was widowed once too. And Mel's like, yeah, I know. We talked about it. She told me. Doc, he's like, I can't imagine what you're going through, but, I'm here for you. And she's just trying to get through the day. But she's kind of, in a way, patting herself on the back and like, unbelievable that she has made it officially 365 days without Mark. Like, she did it. Like, take a deep breath. She actually did it. And so at least that's going okay for her. And she's tired of feeling sad. She said she spent so much time feeling sad for like the entire year, I'm sure, that she's just now starting to feel like herself again, which is such a big part of being in Virgin River, working with Doc, meeting all these people, letting some light back into her life again.
There's so much going on in Virgin River, considering it's a small town. She can't be in her head too much.
Right.
Because there's other people she has to help,
right.
with the whole thing with Lily.
Oh, so many things.
All that sort of stuff when she first started. And, so.
I think she's like she said, she's afraid of a setback, but she doesn't, she's trying to just embrace the moment, live her life, try and find a little bit of happiness here and there if she can. Doc's just trying to be supportive, and he's like, don't be too hard on yourself. And so she's going to try. She's going to try. So he, of course, says, so, on the day of your husband's death, like, okay, so what is on your schedule today? And it's almost comedy. She kind of chuckles and she's like, oh, Jack and Charmaine are coming in to talk about their birth plan. And he was like, oh, in my day, the only plan was to pack a suitcase and drive to the nearest hospital. So they both kind of chuckle about that, which is true. That's what they did.
Yeah, you and I were born in that generation.
Yep. It's like, oh, the baby's coming, let's go.
A birth plan. Exactly. I mean, the funny thing is that my sister and I were both born on a beach, at the beach house.
You're twins.
Because my mother thought she had time.
Oh my, that's terrible.
Well, let's just say it's a lucky thing she had a couple of children before us, so that she, her
by that time you guys just walked right out,
pretty much in that sense. And my aunts were there to help her because my father, according to my mother, was an absolute wreck.
Was useless.
Absolute wreck. Well, yeah, I love my father dearly, and he's a genius, but he does not do well in that sort of situation because he likes to plan everything. Everything has a plan.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, babies come when they want, and it's never when you think, and it's never what's convenient.
Well, that's true, but it's even harder when you're having two babies, and you're out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And my mother basically said, "No, I'm not getting in the car."
Okay, well, clearly you made it because here you are.
Exactly.
So I'm glad. Thanks. Thanks.
So anyway. So back to where, and then who should walk into the
Oh
clinic
yes, Hope
but
walks into the
Hope?
clinic, and she's there to check on Mel. She's
Of course
gonna
she is.
pretend she's not there. She's, how are you? And she goes, oh, well, more importantly, how are you? And she goes, oh, well, Connie dropped off some things for Lily, and I just, because she was gonna come by and pick them up, and Hope is like, you don't have to put a brave face on. And Mel's like, I'm not putting on a brave face. I'm working. And she's like, right, exactly. Distraction is the key. She goes, why don't you go home and watch a movie, or, just do something for yourself? And she's just like, no, I gotta work. And in walks Charmaine with dog in hand. And she's like, sorry, I'm really,
Yes.
I was just really excited. Like, she's not even showing,
Yeah,
and they're doing
she's
this.
annoying.
And the
Yes.
dog, of course, goes right up to Hope and tries to
Mm-hmm.
jump up on her, and she just controls that dog. She's like, stop, sit, lie down. She goes, yes, well, Tucker and I have an understanding. And they're like, I see that. It's the funniest thing. I mean, that dog just loves Hope.
But the funny thing is that she has somebody else to control.
Right? Another one, I know. And this one won't talk back. So that's nice.
Exactamundo.
So they're going to wait for Jack, and Doc offers his office to have their little meeting because, they have to get together and chat about the birth plan.
I'm surprised Doc isn't part of this. Because, I mean, isn't he planning on helping deliver these babies?
It's not really, like, he'll be there, and my understanding is that he doesn't do birth plans, like he said. You just go to the hospital. Like, he doesn't need to. He's like, if you decide that you're going to have the baby anywhere near or involving Virgin River, you just tell me where to be. And when you say you're in labor, I'm going to be there. He doesn't need to be a part of, like, how that all comes about. Like, who's going to be where and what he doesn't care about any of that. And
nope.
And I'm sure that in LA, Mel was involved with many birth plans as part of her job because that's a generation. We have birth plans where in his generation and nobody cared. So he doesn't need to be involved. He's just like, when the baby comes, you tell me when to show up and I'm there. Like, that's all he needs to know. So it's irrelevant for him to be a part of it. This is their thing. I don't even think he wants to. He's like, oh, please take my office. As long as I don't have to be involved, good enough for me. So Hope gives him a little grief for not giving Mel the day off. But he said, hey, we should listen to her. She said this is what she wanted. She told us both she wanted it to be a normal day. And Hope is trying to defend her, saying, well, we have to be more sensitive. She's like, no, this is what she asked for. And this is Hope again, trying to control things and not listening to people. Mel said what she wanted, and Doc is trying to follow through with what she said.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think it's sweet that she cares about her. She's like, well, she should be in bed under the covers with the lights. It's like, maybe that's what you would do, but that's not what she wants to do. And she said, look, you're not in charge. Mel is. She's an adult. We need to take her word for it. So she said, I'm not going to meddle, but for the record, I disagree, but I'll go along with it. I'll. She's like, oh, it wouldn't be the first time.
Yes. And the constant batter of these two.
So they decide they're going to have an early dinner. She's like, well, you were up before the sun, and, why don't we eat in instead of going out? Because she knows he's been up since 3:32. And he was like, wait a minute. We've been sneaking around, and I'm done sneaking around. Let's just go. And he understands that it's hard for her to, like, make their relationship public now, but he's ready. He's done. He's done hiding, and he wants to just make it known. So if people are going to talk, they're going to talk anyway, regardless. So the best way is, like,
talk about.
Yep, just rip the Band-Aid off, go out in public, You know, he's ready for it. She's she's a little nervous.
That's an
Yeah,
understatement.
yeah. So she's like, fine, fine, fine. But do I get to pick the restaurant? And he says, anywhere you want, as long as it's in a 5-mile radius, which basically means
It's
Jack's.
Jack.
Yeah. What is it? Happy wife, happy life. He goes, well, that sounds like I'm a glutton for punishment. I love the banter. The two of them, I still
I
call,
know,
even though
they're
they're
so
getting
cute.
along, they're like the Bickersons.
Oh, yeah, because we know that's only going to last for so long. Only so long before they start arguing over somebody or something.
Yeah, I know. But it's, it's who they are. It's how they relate to each other.
That's true.
But then every
And
time
they've
they argue,
and
they
they've
get to
been
make
doing it
up.
for 20, yeah, and they've been doing it for 20 years.
They were apart for 20 years. They didn't say how long they were together. Because you figure
That's true.
if he's 72 and she's probably close to that, maybe late 60s, 20
Hmm.
years, that means that they've been together since he was in his early 50s. She was probably
Hmm.
in her late 40s, and she had 2 marriages before that.
Sure.
So, and one was very, very early. She was
Hmm.
very young, she said.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they were together probably at least a couple of years before they got married. So, yeah, they've been doing this dance for a long time. So, we're back at the bar, and Jack is getting ready to head over to the clinic, and he's, handing off some stuff for Preacher to do. And Ricky walks in, and he's still feeling bad for his
And he
shenanigans.
should. He should.
Yeah, he should. And he knows. And he's like, I'm sorry I'm late. It wasn't my fault. I had car trouble. And he goes, yeah, I heard from Preacher. What kind of trouble? He goes, oh, I got into a car accident. Now remember,
Mhm.
he ditched
Lizzie.
his job, and then he got into the car accident with Lizzie. But nobody knows that until he says something. And
Hmm.
Jack, of course, is concerned. He's like, was anybody hurt? He goes, oh, no, no. It's just a little fender bender. He goes, in Eureka. And he's like, we'll come by later and, we'll take a look at the car. We'll check everything out. And he goes, and how's your grandma? Is she okay? And he goes, oh, well, she wasn't there. And boy, does he look like guilty. He goes, well, were you by yourself? He goes, no, I was with Lizzie. And he goes, so Liddy gave you permission to take your car to Eureka with Lizzie. Jack knows for a fact Liddy would have never done that. Because he would have never done that. Like, that's no.
because
And
because Eureka is 2 hours away.
I know. And
Okay.
there's no way that
Uh,
Liddy would have let him do that. And he
mhm.
was like,
You stole the
so you had
car and
permission? And he was like, not exactly. And he goes, okay, so you stole the car
crashed it.
and you crashed it.
Oh,
And
Jack
you
is
missed
not
your
happy
shift.
now.
Did I miss something? And he goes, well, no, it's not like that. He goes, well, wait a second. Did you get permission? And he's like, come on, Ricky. Like, this is like a come to Jesus moment for Ricky. Like, come on. He goes, that's stealing. Like, he's like, I'm going to pay for the damages. Like, that'll fix everything. And he goes, what is going on with you? You're stealing liquor from the bar. You're taking your grandma's car without asking. You're missing work. This isn't like you. He goes, oh, look, I said I'm sorry. And he said,
Hmm.
well, I have to say, ever since this Lizzie has been coming around, it's affecting you and what's going on with you. And I'm not sure that it's the best idea to keep hanging out with her. And Ricky gets very defensive because she has nothing to do with it. She has nothing to do with anything. And he's like, well, wait a second. Before she showed up, you weren't getting in any trouble and doing things you weren't supposed to be doing. And he's like, look, all I'm saying is I don't want to see where this chick leads you next because it's not looking good. And he's like,
Yeah.
have you ever had a conversation with her? Like, now he's trying to defend Lizzie. When
Hmm.
let's look back. Let's take a second. She's constantly ditching her job. She
Hmm.
does everything she can to not work. She's
That's
always
true.
trying to distract him from doing what he needs to do. And then the whole liquor in the car and the shopping and the not a good influence. But Ricky
Nope.
He's
he
not.
has limited experience with young girls,
Yeah,
and
he's a little
he does
doe-eyed and green right now.
right. He doesn't see the manipulation that's
No,
happening with Lizzie, and
he is not
that's the
thinking with his
downfall.
brain right now at all.
No, he's thinking with something else,
Yep,
and it ain't
his
atop
brain.
of his head.
No. Ricky's getting very defensive, and he's like to Jack, like, look, you haven't even had a conversation with her. Like, you're not even giving her the benefit of the doubt. I didn't know you to just jump to conclusions about somebody that you don't even know. And he was like,
Mm.
dude, that is not what I'm doing. This is about you. Like, I care about you and what's
Mm-hmm.
going on with you. You're doing all of these things. If she's a part of it, that's one thing. But he knows Ricky would not have made these decisions
Yep, on his own.
on his own. And
Mm-hmm.
Jack, and then he gets back at Jack. He sort of can't take it anymore, the pressure, and he's like, "Look." Jack tells him, "You know, you have very limited experience with women. I'm just trying to I'm looking out for you. I'm trying to help you." And he goes, "Oh yeah, 'cause you're the expert here."
Mm-hmm.
And that's like, you don't sass mentor, father
Mm-hmm.
figure. Jack is not going to put up with that, because even in the army, I mean, you don't. It's like your subordinates. Like you
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't talk to your boss like that. You wouldn't talk. A student wouldn't talk to a teacher like that. And he is not going to take that from Ricky.
Yeah.
And he was like,
Yeah.
he's, oh yeah, because you're the expert here. And he's like, excuse me. And it's not like they had this conversation quietly
In
in the
private, yeah.
kitchen. Like, they're
Mm-mm.
yelling across the bar. And Preacher is looking on, watching this whole thing. He goes, look, you got your ex-girlfriend pregnant, and now you're in love with someone else. And he says
Mm.
it loud. He goes, I don't think you're in a position to be handing out advice on women to anyone. And Preacher jumps right on him. He's like, hey, that was way out of line. And Jack's like, what the hell was that? And they're looking at each other like, oh my God. Jack's not even going to acknowledge it. Walks out of the room. Like, he's like, I
Yep.
got stuff to do. I'm not going to deal with this. So we're back at the clinic.
And we see an awkward pause here. So Charmaine with the dog in her lap, and they're waiting for Jack because Jack
It's
was in the
late.
middle of his confrontation. Yes, he's late. And so now they're
Her and
sitting
Mel are
there.
just sitting there in Jock's office waiting to have this birth plan meeting.
Yeah. And you can feel the tension in the room. You know what I mean?
And they're trying to make small talk, and Mel's like,
Mm-hmm.
can I get you some more water? And Charmaine's like, oh God, if I have any more water, I'm gonna float out of here. Like, seriously, I can't.
uh,
And she's like, well, we have some bagels in the kitchen. I could make you one. She goes, oh no, it's fine. Jack and I are gonna get some breakfast after this. And then the door opens, and Jack's, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I couldn't get out. I'm leaving the bar, and I'm here. So they sit down, and they go into. So, did they find anything more about the body? And Jack's like, no, not yet. And Charmaine is like totally out of the loop. Like, wait a minute. What body? What's going on here? Oh, and he's like, oh, they found some remains and da da da. She's like, well, how did you know about that? Looking at Mel. Oh, well, we were by the river near where they found it, and yeah, we were taking a walk. And she's like, oh, where are you now? When was that? And he's like, like last night. She's like, oh, so you and Jack were together last night. And the little green monster is just climbing up on her shoulder. Now, she doesn't know when she says you were together last night. Her mind is going straight to, they must have hooked up.
Exactly.
No one ever confirms or denies that, but that's where, because she's like, oh, if they slept together once, they're probably going to sleep together again. In her mind, that's what she's thinking. And the more time they spend together, the less chance she's going to have getting him back. So anytime she finds out they're together, boy, does she get her back up about it.
Oh, she has a little hissy fit.
Oh, and she's like, oh, so you were together last night. She goes, you lied to me. And he's like, what? well, when you came over and to see the nursery furniture and you told me you couldn't stay because you had to go to the bar. And he goes, well, I don't know what you're talking about. He goes, don't you remember? Preacher was slammed. And what is it? National Question Jack Day? And he was like, oh, yeah, you're right. I did say that. She goes, so you didn't go to the bar? He goes, yeah, I was going to, but then you ran into Mel. He goes, no, that was later. He goes, I'm sorry. Yeah, really? Are you sorry? Sorry you got caught. And Mel's like, okay, I don't want to be here right now. Like, maybe we can reschedule this for another day. And Charmaine is like, and Jack's like, yeah, that works for me. And she's like, no. She goes, well, maybe we should do this when you're not so upset. She's like, well, I'm only upset because of you. So she's really pissed because she just thinks they hooked up. She's like, you know what? I came here for a birth plan and I'm not leaving until I get one. And everybody's like, oh.
But you know what I find interesting is she's pissed off. Okay?
She is.
You guys don't have a relationship. This is what I don't understand. You don't have a relationship. So what Jack does with his time shouldn't be any of your business.
It shouldn't be,
now,
but it is.
But it is. I understand.
She's holding on to the connection that he has with the baby. And she's trying to make that into more.
She's using using that as leverage. Is basically what.
She's absolutely, 100%.
She's using that as 100%. Leverage, and and it's not getting her what she wants.
Nope. And she's just getting pissed.
Exactly.
Yep. She's just getting mad about it.
She's just pissed off because she feels that she has the upper hand with this baby, and this baby is not doing what it's supposed to do for her.
Yep.
Which is get Jack's attention.
Not working.
So
she's like, well, if you want to leave, fine. And if you want to make up a reason, go ahead. And he's like, what is going on here? Mm-hmm. Oh, my goodness. So now we're at Lily's farm, and Hope has delivered the extra baby things that I think it was Connie dropped off at the clinic. For her. So she delivered them, and Lily's like, and they've been best friends for 15, 20 years. She's like, it's so sweet of you to deliver Connie's gifts. And, everyone has been so generous. And of course, everybody's like, yeah, it's just an excuse to see Chloe.
That's true. Because she is adorable.
She is adorable. She is adorable.
Adorable baby.
And, Tara's there, and it's been really good to have her there to help. And she's like, I just, I don't know what I did to deserve such a wonderful daughter who's willing to do this with her and for her and help her. And they're just kind of, enjoying the farm. And Lily has said that she, has to remember the importance of having faith in the people that you love. That they're going to be there for you, even when you don't want them to be. So she's like, thank you to her, to Hope, for also being there for her, for being an important person that's helped her through this. So they're just kind of feeding the horses and just spending a moment on the farm. And this farm is barely making it because she doesn't have any help. I mean, I don't know how she ran the farm pregnant. Hiding, because remember, she hid the pregnancy. So probably those last few months, no one saw her. And she was by herself because her husband had passed away, 6 months before Chloe was born. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, this farm is barely hanging on.
Well, she's managing it somehow. So we'll see. And now comes the part of living every day like it's your last.
Yeah, that's what Hope says. I'm living every day like it's my last. Because Lily's like, she heard something strange, and she's like, really? She goes, the Doc and Muriel are dating? She goes, I heard the same thing. She goes, well, I don't buy it. And she's like, why not? She goes, oh my gosh, Doc's been in love with you since the day you moved to Virgin River. She goes, well, I don't know about the day. And she goes, yeah, Why don't you tell me the real story? She goes, well, it's complicated. I don't want to bore you with the details. And then she goes back to remembering her and Buck, and when they were sweethearts till the day that he died.
Yep.
And she had no idea how it felt until then, what it feels to have your heart broken. And so she tries to kind of impart a little bit of advice to Hope. And she's like, she would give anything for just one more afternoon with Buck.
Yeah.
And, and with the love of her life. And she goes, and yours is just a few blocks away. So don't miss your chance. Don't play it safe.
Yeah. Stop playing the games is basically what Lily is telling her.
And Lily doesn't even really know what games have been going on, and she's saying that. Yeah. So that even makes more sense.
Yeah. But she knows Hope well enough to know that there's
shenanigans going on.
Exactly. You got to know your best friends. Yeah. They're good, they're bad, and they're in between.
Yep.
And she knows that Hope is up to something.
Oh, yeah.
She doesn't know what it is.
And she knows that she needs to knock it off unless she wants to ruin whatever she's got with Doc.
Yeah.
Oh, so we're back at Jack's bar, and Preacher's getting meals ready, and he's talking to George, the new guy. And he's explaining, everything runs smoothly, and, you got to work together, and everything gets plated. He's just explaining how things work. And he brings out something, he puts it on the table, and he goes to walk away, and he's like, hey, and it's Jamie. And she's like, oh, she just wants to say hello, and he doesn't take a moment to say hello, and she sort of calls him on it. So he comes back, and he's like, oh, I'm sorry, it's been like a crazy day, and we're shorthanded, and as they're having a nice little chat, and Connie walks in with her stealthily. I mean, so obvious. It's like so obvious, Connie. She looks at him and gives him like a nod, like, get over here.
It's just
she's
this
funny.
Tongue. The characters in this tongue are just priceless.
Well,
they are each unique in their own special way.
They are. But how many times has Connie ever gone into the office to have a conversation with anybody?
None.
That's why this is weird. It would almost have been better if she called him outside or went out the back way and said, meet me out back, but to go into the office and like sit down in Jack's chair like she owns the place. I just thought that was funny. Like, it's like, if you're trying not to be obvious, you're doing a really bad job at it, because that's about as obvious as you can get. So she says to him, did you hear? And he's like, about the body? Yeah. And she's like, there's no reason to think it's Wes.
And the thing is, part of it is that Connie is listening to all this on her.
She is 24/7 on the police scanner. Trying to hear what's going on. I mean, she is all in.
She's invested in this.
She's like a junior detective at this point. Girlfriend needs like a paper badge or something.
She reminds me of you and your shows when you're figuring out who done it.
Hey, you got to pay attention to the details. It's all about the details.
Well, Connie is definitely about the details because she is listening to things that she's not supposed to be listening
or
to.
normally would not, but now she has a vested interest in finding out what's going on, because it in a way, I think for her, I mean, she doesn't. What else is she doing with her time?
Well, that's true. Between
she's
the
kind
store
of retired, and the store, the sewing circle, gossiping with the ladies. Like she's got time.
She's got a lot going on.
But this is exciting.
She's got her general store.
That's exciting. This is interesting.
She's got what's her name's the
bakery truck too.
Bakery truck. She's busy.
She's
got Lizzie. Oy,
I know. Like she has time, but see, this is fun. This is exciting. I don't think it's fun, but I think it's like she's worried because she feels responsible that Wes took Christopher.
Yes.
Or
that's true.
I mean that She feels responsible that Paige had to leave and that Wes was in town and that she saw. I mean, she's just like, this is crazy. So
Yep.
he said there's no reason to believe that body is Wes. I mean, we don't know. I mean, it's Virgin River. How many dead bodies do you think are in town? I mean, like, who else would it be? But whatever. It's possible it's not Wes, I guess. And then she's like, yeah, but even if they do find him, they're not going to, they can't connect him. And then they do a flashback. They do a flashback to what Preacher did that night after he sent Paige and Christopher away. He wiped down the truck with alcohol. He wore gloves. He had a hat on. Not that he has any hair, but, and he pushed the truck down a hill into the forest. And so he's like, I wiped down the car. She's like, good, no fingerprints. And he goes, well, there might be fibers from your clothing, but there's nothing we can do about that. And he goes, well, I didn't have a lot of time to figure it out. She goes, yeah.
She's that detailed about fibers.
Oh, yeah. I think in Connie's spare time, she's listening to true crime podcasts. That's just my theory.
Oh God. Oh.
It's like, what do they say? They say you watch Hallmark Channel to get to learn how to romance somebody, and then you watch Lifetime to how to get rid of the body. Something like that. And most women watch both, so they've got all the information they need. So she's like, if someone asks about Wes, what's your plan? Like, what are you going to say? Because we got to know what we're going to say. We got to have our story straight. And he's like, well, if the body in the morgue is his, then I'll just tell the sheriff that I did it. And she goes, no, that's not going to work. You can't do that. You can't give yourself up. Nobody knows anything.
And this is what I love, how she
she's this is how she's been watching true crime. She's like, 10% of the cases never end in a conviction. 90% are because the suspect confessed. So don't say anything. He's like, how do you know this? He's looking at her like, what? If they haul you in, there's only one thing to do. Deny. I mean, it's Preacher. Nobody would believe he ever did anything.
Just love Connie in this book because she is totally invested in it.
She is all in. She is ready. She's going to have a story straight. She's got details. She's got backstory. She's ready. Okay.
Oh, God.
So we're back at the clinic and Jack seems upset.
Jack is stressed.
He's very
stressed. Jack is stressed.
And Charmaine looks stressed, and Mel's trying to calm everybody down, and he's like, absolutely not, out of the question. And they're like, Jack is like, look, I don't care what I did. I am not having a doula deliver our twins at your house. And she goes, well, at least I'm being honest with what I want. And he's like, can you back me up here, please? Aren't twin births generally riskier? And she's like, well, yes, for the most part. He goes, well, what are the risks? And she's like, okay, twins are more likely to be born premature, obviously. And there's a greater chance that at least one of them is going to come out in the breech position, which is basically feet first.
Yep.
Or on their side. And then you'd have to get a C-section. And Jack is like, Charmaine, come on. What happens if you need surgery? I mean.
Yeah. She's not thinking that.
He's like, the hospital's 2 hours away. They'll never make it. And she's like, well, I heard that, the infection is a lot less with a home birth. And he's like, well, where did you hear that? It may be true, but infection would not be the first problem.
Right. And the thing is, she's talking about a situation where somebody's normally having one baby.
If they were just having one normal birth with no complications, sure, that makes sense. But this is not that. And she's like, infection, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, well, where did you hear that? And she's like, the internet. And he's like, oh, my God. Mel's like, look, there's undeniable advantages to delivering in a hospital. Access to emergency care, most important thing. But if Charmaine is anxious about being in a hospital, then we have to consider that. So she says, she excuses herself. She's like, look, I'm going to go take Tucker for a walk. So gives you guys time to like take a minute, talk it through, maybe figure out what it is you do want. Like find some common ground and maybe we can figure this out.
Yeah, good luck with that.
So she excuses herself and the two of them. Oh, and Charmaine just sits so smug in her seat and gives him a stare down, kind of like, my body, I'm going to do what I want, and you're going to have to go along with it. Like, that's kind of in a way, it's almost opposite of everything she's done before that, because you would think that she would, in a way, just knowing how she feels, like she would go along with him to try and pull him in even more. But good for her that she's standing her ground and saying, this is what I need, this is what I want. It's not making friends.
Right, right. But part of it is that, you remember, her fear of hospitals. So
exactly. But he doesn't know that. I don't think Mel knows that.
Yeah.
But he doesn't know. I don't think he knows that. Because remember, they don't talk. Their relationship was not, like, she could have cared less that he's dealing with PTSD. She could have cared less about anything deep and personal and introspective about him. And I think it's the same. I think they've known each other a long time. I think that, they fooled around, whatever. But they don't know stuff about each other. In the, 3 months that Mel's been in town, I will guarantee you that Mel and Jack know more about each other in that amount of time than Charmaine knows about him in the entire however long she's known him.
I would not disagree with you on that. I would not disagree with you on that.
So this is where we're at. So the two of them are going to try to work it out. So Ricky decides to go take a stroll and go to the bakery truck, and he sees Lizzie, and he's like, hey, how's it going? Came to pick up pies. And she goes, so, you didn't get fired, did you? And he goes, no, but Jack's like super pissed. He's like, yeah, but he'll get over it. He's like, yeah, I guess. She goes, look, my aunt's mad at me 24/7 and I'm still here. But she just has a no-care attitude, so it doesn't matter.
But part of it, she's used to being in trouble. She's used to disappointing the adults in her life.
She's doing whatever the heck she wants. And she has a very different relationship with Connie and her parents than he does with Jack.
But she has a very different relationship with adults in general.
Yeah. Yeah.
She has nobody she looks up to. Right. She has no
and nobody who she feels is looking out for her either.
Exactly. So her thing is, I'm going to do what I want since nobody else cares, and that's it. But Ricky doesn't come from that.
For her, she'd rather ask for forgiveness than permission.
And this whole town has helped raise Ricky.
Yeah.
So he knows that the whole town looks at him.
Yeah.
And if he does something that's inappropriate or not right, they're going to call him on his bullshit.
Exactly.
Is basically it.
Exactly.
So he understands that he has to answer for when he does things like this.
Right. And he even says, he's like, look, Jack's not like Connie. He's mostly cool. I mean, you follow and do what you're supposed to do. You're good. And she's like, well, yeah, I get it. But how about I make it up to you? And he's like, what, like a free brownie? She goes, well, I had a little bit more fun, something more fun in mind. And he's like, well, you don't have to do that. He's always so uncomfortable. She's like, oh, maybe I want to. And then his phone rings and they need him back at the bar. She's like, okay, fine. Just come back later.
I don't trust this child as far as I can throw her.
And then
she is way too manipulative.
Well, she distracts him so bad. He tries to leave and she's like, aren't you forgetting something? And he was like, what? She's like, pies. It's like, oh, yeah, right. Uh-huh. Like, he's just a puddle around her.
Well, he's never had any interaction with a girl that he likes. You remember? Tried, he wanted to ask that girl out who.
Oh yeah, that never happened.
Yeah, and never happened. So he is not. He's not a swab and debonair teenager. He's awkward.
Exactly.
To say the least.
Exactly.
So
well, there's not a lot of young girls in Virgin River to. I mean, I know he goes to school, but who knows? Maybe it's a really small school and there's just not a lot of people around.
Hooked up with this manipulative little.
I know.
So, until she can change her
She just,
spots.
she just needs to be in Virgin River longer. She'll come around. Give her
Mhm.
some time. There's hope. There's hope for her yet.
Yeah, yes. But in the meantime, she irritates me.
I know. I know. And she's such a bad influence on him, but,
Oh,
maybe he'll see
that's an
that later.
understatement.
So
Yeah.
now we have Mel, and she's taking Tucker for a walk, giving Jack and Charmaine a little time.
A little
And
space.
yes, a little time and space. And her phone rings. And it's her
Joey.
sister, Joey. We haven't heard from Joey in a while.
No,
And
we
she's
haven't
like,
heard from Joey in a while.
"Oh, you sound out of breath." And she was like, "Oh, I'm at the gym." And she's like, "Oh, what did you take?" And she goes, "Flow with Marina." And apparently Mel used to go to the same class. She goes, "Oh, I miss Marina."
I miss Marina.
She goes, "Oh, how is she? Is she single?" She goes, "Yeah, well, I heard she's hooking up with the studio owner's husband. So she may not be teaching here much longer." She goes, "Wow. That's some juicy gossip."
Yeah.
And so she's asking her, like, because she knows today is the day of
Mm-hmm.
the husband. I mean, this is like the day started at 3:30 in the morning with her delivering a baby, and now she's dealing with Charmaine and Jack trying to make a birth plan, and it's the day of her husband's death. And so she's like, "How are you doing?" And she's like, "Well, I made it through 365 days." She goes, "You should
Mm-hmm.
not be alone today." She goes, "I'm not. I'm at work. I'm okay, really. I'm good." And she's, "I miss Mark and I'm thinking about him, but I'm not sad. Not sad, which is good." She goes, "Well, maybe that means that you're on the other side." And Mel is like, "Well, the other side? What do you mean?" She goes, "Well, maybe the grief, maybe the worst is behind you." And she goes, "Well, how do you know when you're done grieving?" And she goes, "Well, I think it's which is a very good, I mean, it actually makes a lot of sense. It's a very
It's a
good
good
line.
analogy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's when the memory of someone brings you peace instead of pain,
Mm-hmm.
which
That's
I
true.
think is a very memorable line.
It is.
And she said she was thinking about him yesterday when he was sailing, and she goes, "Oh my gosh, remember that trip?" And he was such a dork, and they have some fond memories. She said, "Yeah, I think you guys were drinking margaritas at breakfast." She goes, "Yeah, I remember I was asleep by lunch." So as she's walking back toward the clinic, still on the phone with Joey, she sees Jack coming out the front door, and she's like, "Oh, let me call you back." And so they say goodbye, and Jack walks up to her, and he's like, "Oh, I didn't mean to interrupt." And she's like, "No, no, it's okay." She's like, "Did so?" Then this is when, and Mel does not back down from anything. You know what? I love the fact. I mean, she's had to be strong. She has had to build her armor her whole life because of all the crap she's had to deal with. But she doesn't back down from anything. So she hits him hard. She's like, "Did you lie to Charmaine?" Like right out. And he's like, "Well, not on purpose. It was more of an excuse." And she's like, "For what?" He goes, "I went by her house and there was baby furniture everywhere. And I guess I just wasn't prepared for it. I mean, he didn't want to hurt her feelings." But she's like, "Look, if you would have told her that, I'm sure she would have understood." He goes, "Well, I don't want her to think that I'm freaking out, and that doesn't mean I'm not committed and I'm not going to be there." And she's like, "Look, I get it. Whether I'm ready or not, it doesn't matter. These kids are coming. Like, and he just wants to be a good dad and know that I'm there for them." And she's like, "Look, they're gonna." So he's worried because he's trying to get Charmaine to like think logically about this birth plan, and she has it in her mind that she wants to have a doula in a swimming pool in her living room at home. And he was like, "Please, please, she's not listening to me. Can you please talk to her?" Like, this is the last person that should be talking to Charmaine about this, but there isn't anybody else. Like, who else? Doc's not going to take over and have this conversation with Charmaine.
I'm sorry. And you know where I'm gonna go with
People
this, right?
ask a lot of Mel. They ask more from
It
Mel
really
than
does.
they ever should.
Exactly. And the thing about it is, it's not like he's oblivious to how Charmaine feels but
Right.
about her. So you've now put her again in another bad
Again, in
situation.
another awkward
You know,
situation.
and I'm sorry, you are a grown ass man. This is your
Again,
issue.
I know.
You no, and I know what you're going to tell me, but it still pisses me off.
And be pissed off. It's okay.
It
Have your
pisses me off.
have your pissed off feelings. But he knows that Mel is a professional and that, God forbid, like he always said, if anything ever happened to those babies, he would never forgive himself. And honestly, Mel wouldn't be able to forgive herself either. If
But
she
the point
stepped
about
away,
this, yes, I understand that. But they're acting like there's no other medical professional there. There's there.
yeah, but
And
Doc,
I understand that
Doc
he's a
isn't. Doc
general
doesn't know
practitioner.
anything. Doc
I
Doc
understand
can't
that.
do this. Doc
I
isn't
get
going to
that.
talk her into anything.
Ah,
I know it's frustrating. It's lame. It's not the way to go.
I'm sorry.
Send her to
I'm
Eureka.
really-
Send her to Grace Valley to handle the situation. But that's
You
not.
know, I'm sorry. I think Jack just pushes this friendship way too far.
Keep in mind, Jack is oblivious,
That is also true.
right?
Considering he didn't realize Charmaine was in love with him for 2 years.
Right? Okay, so we have to remember that in love and relationships, he's like
Jack
a 14-year-old boy. He has no clue about anything. He knows how he feels about Mel, but that's pretty much all he knows. He's got little to no experience in relationships. So this is where we're at. So he just asked Mel to make sure whatever is decided, as long as she's fully informed with everything that she needs to know, he'll go with whatever they decide, but he just wants to make sure that they're safe and they're taken care of. That's it.
I'm still not a fan.
I know.
But,
So
all
Mel reluctantly, she's like, yes, okay. I will talk to her. And she's like, gives him Tucker, and he's like, thank you. She's like, you're welcome. And just reluctantly, she's going back inside, and he sits down on the steps with the dog. He's like, good luck. And she's like, all right, Tucker, let's let the ladies talk it out, because, you don't have to worry about any of this. Lucky dog, literally. So now we're back at Jack's bar, and Hope strolls in, and he's like, how you doing, Hope? What's going on? She's like, I like to reserve a booth. Now remember, she's supposed to plan dinner within a 5-mile radius for her and Doc out in the open. And he's like, okay, she's like, dinner for 2 people at 5 o'clock. And he's like, well, I think it's safe to say you don't need to make a reservation. I mean, it's 5 o'clock for all. She goes, I just want to make sure we have a booth. She goes, is it official mayor business? He goes, no, it's just dinner, but it seems pretty important. She goes, I'm having dinner with Doc. And he's like, well, what's with all the intrigue? You guys are here all the time. Like, you eat here all the time. She goes, well, it's more intimate than usual. And he's like, really? She goes, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. So I'd appreciate if you keep your realies to yourself. He goes, I think it's about time that you and Doc get back together. And she's like, well, we're giving it another try. He's like, well, I think that's great. And she's like, why? He goes, well, it's obvious that you two care about each other. We fight like cats and dogs. And he's like, yeah, more like an old married couple. She says, well, we tried that once and it didn't work out.
Which they are.
Yeah. He goes, he said, sometimes things need to marinate before they get on the grill. And she's like,
20 years.
You got any other food-related analogies for me? She's like, thanks for the pep talk. And he's like, all right, see you tonight.
Yes.
All right, so now Charmaine and Mel are in the kitchen, sitting at the table, and it's a very somber conversation. And Charmaine is like, I'm so sorry. I had no idea you had a stillbirth. Now, this is not information that Mel shares. No, I think Jack is the only other person that knows about this. And she's been through everything and will empathize in a way that she feels is going to be the best for her patient. And unfortunately, in this situation, this is something that she is familiar with. So she feels like she has to share this in order to get Charmaine to look at the situation in a different way. So, I mean, Charmaine is almost shocked. Wow. And then that's why Mel says, I'm only telling you this because I want to give you a different perspective. I want you to make the best decision you can for your twins. And she further explains that, she still hasn't gotten over losing her daughter. It was like 3 years before that she says she doesn't think that she ever will, and that she wouldn't wish that on anyone. And that's why she wants to make sure that Charmaine takes every precaution. She said, look, I'm a nurse. I'm a midwife. My husband was a doctor. They knew the risks. They did everything the way that they were supposed to do it. And she still blames herself. She said if she would have done anything unconventional, she would have never been able to forgive herself. And I think in that moment, Charmaine is now looking at this entire situation and Mel completely differently. Like knowing what Mel has been through and knowing that Jack asked her to, be the midwife for her and all the grief and all the things that she said to her. Because that popped back in her head when she said, well, you don't have any kids and you did and went off on her.
Yep.
And she is sitting there solemn and sorry. She may never admit that, but she has a heart. I mean, Jack said she is a good person when she's not pissed and trying to go after him and steal him away from Mel, but usually. But she's thinking back of the last couple of weeks, what was said, how things were done, it all kind of gets clear. And she finally is like, okay, Mel knows what she's talking about and she really does care and I need to listen to her. So she very thoughtfully is like, what do you think I should do? Now on the other side, Mel gets the fact because her mother died of cancer in a hospital and understands where Charmaine's coming from. She understands her fear and her frustration and all of that. And so in the same respect, she now can see they both see the whole picture.
Yep.
And Mel's like, I think that we should find a way that you can have the safest option, but also make sure that you feel secure. And Charmaine's like, okay, what that is, we don't know. And then she feels like, I don't want you to think that me and Jack are sneaking around behind your back because it isn't what you think it is. And she felt the need to say that because they're having a moment and it's like, I got to insert this now while she's listening to me.
Yeah. They're laying the cards out on the table, basically.
Right. And the reason why they were together, because she just thinks they're together and they're hooking up and they're walking and she was with me last night and that she has one impression of what happened. And she's like, look, I went to the river last night looking for Jack. She just wanted to make sure that he was okay after the guys left. And Charmaine still can't get over the fact that, well, yeah, but he still lied to me until I called him on it. She's like, how am I supposed to trust him? And Mel's like, look, he's their father. When they're born, you're going to want to have his support. If you alienate him now, how's that going to work? So I think she's almost helping Charmaine evolve.
Good luck with that.
Because Charmaine is a very superficial kind of person. And
Amen.
Spending time with Mel and just dealing with all of this will help her in the end. So now we're outside of the clinic and Doc is sitting on the bench waiting, and he's got Tucker now because who knows where Jack went. And up walks...
Probably went back to the bar.
Probably. Hope walks up, and she's looking at him like, what is going on? Oh, they're still inside working on a birth plan. And he's like, and Jack pawned the dog off on me. And she goes, oh my gosh, they've been in there long enough for Charmaine to actually give birth. You have no idea how long this pregnancy is. By the way, it's the second longest pregnancy on TV. By the time she has these babies, it will have been the second longest pregnancy on television. I don't know who the first one is. I will find that out by the time she has the babies, and I will report. But I know for a fact it's the second longest pregnancy.
Oh, God.
So she came to, Hope came by to the clinic to let Doc know that she made dinner reservations. And he was like, oh, where? She's like, Jack's. He goes, you want to go to Jack's? She's like, no, but may as well rip off the Band-Aid because people are going to talk. Let them talk.
As I said, let's give them something.
And Doc's cute. He's like,
about.
well, actually, I made a reservation myself. She goes, there's only one other restaurant in 5 mile radius, and you hate that place. I think it's Curly's. He goes, yeah, well, I may have bent the rules a little bit. Now Mel comes out, and she's like, hi, Doc, can you come in here? And so he's like, should I tell Preacher we'll take a rain check? He's like, yes. And he goes, oh, and you can leave your umbrella at home. She's like, oh. And he gives the dog to her, and he goes, oh, Tucker, it's you and me again. She finishes his coffee and just sits down. Now they're back in Doc's office, and Doc walks in, and she's like, okay, well, Charmaine and Jack have come up with a birth plan, and we'd really like your input. So he didn't want to be a part of making the plan. He just tell me when you figure it out. Like, I don't need to be here all day while you're going back and forth on all of your, questions and concerns. Just give it to me straight when you figure it out.
Don't want to be part of the shenanigans.
So he's like, of course. So Mel explains that Charmaine's going to deliver the babies at the clinic with Doc and a doula present. And he's like, okay, that's a good idea because the doula will help with her anxiety. And then they're going to have an ambulance on standby to take Charmaine and the babies to Grace Valley if necessary. And he was like, okay. And so Jack's like, what do you think? And he's like, Charmaine? She's like, well, I'd rather live at home, but I can live with this. So he's like, good. Looks like we have a plan. And everybody seems happy about it.
Seems is the operative word.
Yes, there. Yes. And Mel's like, well, I've been up since 3:30 in the morning delivering a baby, so I'm going to go take a break. And Jack looks at her with his smile and his dimples. And he's like, thanks. She's like, you're welcome.
Right now, I'm still annoyed at him.
I know. Be annoyed. It's okay. You can be annoyed and appreciate his dimples. So Jack's like, Doc's like, congratulations. I'm really glad we figured out a plan. And Mel's just got to get out of there. Like, she has got to get out of there. So she gets her coat on, she gets her purse, and she starts out the door, down the steps, and Jack runs up after her, and he was like, hey, thank you for talking to Charmaine. And she's like, well, we really could have picked a different day to do this. She goes, no, I'm really glad we figured it out. He's like, I really think today you should have been focusing on yourself. And she's like, you know what? So, exactly. Okay. Even he recognizes it.
Exactly. So
they could have picked a different day.
Mm-hmm.
But for whatever reason, Charmaine probably picked the day and nobody said today wouldn't be a good day. And then they probably didn't want to get into why. Because she doesn't know that her husband is dead. Like, nobody knows. Doc knows, Hope knows, and Jack knows. But nobody else knows.
Right.
So if she would have said today isn't a good day, then in a way you have to explain why. And I'm sure she didn't want to get into it, at least not now.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it was easier thinking it would just be a quick conversation. Let's make a plan and we'll move on with our life. But of course, nothing ever works out that way, right? So Jack is like, you should have been doing something else today. And she's like, you know what? I got to deliver a beautiful baby boy this morning. So, yeah, that's pretty great. And he's like, still, couldn't have been easy dealing with me and Charmaine.
Amen.
And then she explains to him, she said, you're one of the reasons I'm still standing. And he's like puzzled, like, what do you mean? She's like, I would not have lasted more than 2 days in Virgin River if it wasn't for you.
That is also true.
Very true. And she gives him a little smile and she's like, so thanks. Gives him a smile, turns around and walks away. And he just little smile creeps up just ever so slightly. Because he's like, all right, I'm making an impact. I'm weaseling my way in.
Mm-hmm.
And we have some beautiful scenery. And now is this,
This is the restaurant.
this is the restaurant. It's like a little port where all the boats are docked and rocks and a beautiful little, I don't know, it looks like a cabin on the water almost.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Really nice.
Yep. But
And
it's a restaurant.
it's a beautiful little restaurant. Everyone seems, with linen tablecloths and wine glasses and candles. And Hope is dressed up. She's wearing a maroon dress, and Doc has a suit, no tie, but he has a suit, nice collared shirt. And he says he thought that this might be better. Baby steps. And she said, "Oh, if you would have told me earlier, it would have saved me a lot of stress." She was sweating thinking about having dinner at Jack's bar in front of everybody with Doc, like coming out.
But as Preacher said, people are used to them being together anyway. I mean,
True, but this would be different because now that they're together, before they would sit across the, play pinochle and drink and argue and, whatever this dinner would have been, how they interact with each other would have been
intimate.
visible. Yes, it would have been
Yes.
visible, and people would have talked. People would have had, something to say about it. It would have been different. And she wasn't ready for that. She's fine with them being together. She just was not fine with because it's the people talking and the gossiping and the comments and the whatever. She wasn't ready for that.
That's the woman who is in everybody's business.
Yeah, it's everybody's business. She just doesn't want people in her business. Big difference.
Ah.
So, Doc, they sit down. They're just, this lovely little restaurant and looking at the menu and having some champagne. She's like, "Wow, fancy." He goes, "Well, we're here. We may as well do it right." They toast to each other, to us. And so she's like, "Oh, this place is great shellfish. So if you're in the mood for lobster, go for it."
Lobster seems to be a very big thing with her. She seems to be a big fan of lobster.
Yes, she is. She is. It's like, "So how did you find this place?" "Oh, someone recommended it." And then and then you hear, "Doc?
Yeah.
Hope?" And
My
she
favorite
turns
person.
around, and guess who shows up? Muriel.
Favorite person?
"Hi." Now she looks a little underdressed. She's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
got to be kidding." She is not happy. She's not
No.
happy. No.
They get under each other's skin.
Yep.
Anyway.
So now we're back at the bakery truck, and for whatever reason, Ricky is helping Lizzie. This boy, he is like such a puppy when it comes to Lizzie. He will do anything she asks.
This is his first crush.
I know.
Basically,
it's painful to watch. I'm sorry.
I know. It's very painful to watch.
But he's so inexperienced with relationships and he couldn't even get through a sentence. She thought he was having a seizure the first time he tried to talk to her because he's like, da, ba, da, ba, da, ba, da, trying to talk. But, he's learning. Looks like they're making cookies, and she's throwing cookie dough at him. And he's like, "Stop. What are you doing? You're getting dough everywhere." And she's like, "So?" Because, she doesn't care. She goes, "Whatever. I'm going to be the one that has to clean it up anyway." And he's like, "Stop." And she just keeps throwing cookie dough. He goes, "Throw one more piece, and I'm going to." She's like, "What?" "You're going to be." She's like, "What?" And she just keeps throwing it. He says, "You're going to be in big trouble." She goes, "Oh, I love big trouble." And then he gets some and he puts it in her hair. She goes, "I just washed my hair." He said, "I tried to warn you. You're so dead." And they have to kiss.
Mm-hmm. His first kiss.
Yep. Well, he's kissed her before, but not like that. That's like a real kiss. The first kisses, the tentative ones. No, he's going for it. So now we're back at Jack's bar, and the sheriff walks in, and he was like, "Hey, Sheriff, any word?" And he goes, "Yeah, our John Doe is a fellow by the name of Leo Kavanaugh." And he shows a picture to Jack, and Preacher looks over, and let me tell you, the sigh of relief. Woo! He's like, "Okay, that means there's more than one dead body out in the woods, and I'm just glad it's not my dead body." So Jack looks at the picture, and he's like, "Oh, that's definitely the guy who attacked Mel." And he goes, "Well, we pulled prints off the knife he used, and it is a match, so we know it is the guy." He goes, "Well, I'm really glad you ID'd him. but we gotta figure out what's going on. And he goes, you mind if I keep this? He goes, oh, yeah, I got plenty. And he's like, okay, thank you. Now, he's got to go probably call Mike because now he's got more information.
Yeah.
And so without being obvious, Preacher's going to try and get some information. He's like, yeah, so Sheriff, like, you got any suspects? And he goes, yeah, nothing. It's just a matter of time. I mean, the dogs are tearing up the woods. If there's anything up there, we're going to find it. And he's like, oh, crap, because that's where the car is or where his body is. And change the subject. Here's a menu. Why don't you get something to eat? Let me get you some coffee.
Back at the restaurant.
Oh.
And look who decided to join them.
Well, she says she thanks them for asking her to join them. I think she probably invited herself and makes it sound like that, but
exactly.
Can you imagine?
No. But the look on Hope's face is just priceless.
Well, and Muriel, she has to get a dig in wherever she can. And then, so she says to Doc, not even looking at Hope, she goes, I'm so glad you took me up on my recommendation. Because he said somebody recommended this restaurant when Hope said where. She goes, I know. She goes, I mean, isn't the shell fabulous? And Doc's like, oh my God. She goes, this is one of my favorite restaurants of all times. My dermatologist is just down the street. And I'm usually here like 2 or 3 times a month. And, today I decided to treat myself, a little post-appointment shopping. And, why not dinner? And she's just going on and on. She goes, oh, I think dermatology is a waste of money. Nothing soap and water can't handle. And she goes, oh, you've been terribly misinformed. I mean, consistent dermatological care. I mean, no one would ever guess that you and I are so close in age. And Doc, check, please. Oh, excuse me, I'm feeling a little queasy. Hope is like, I gotta go. I gotta get out. I gotta get out of here. And she excuses herself.
Yes.
And, Muriel, I have a fabulous idea. I'm taking this wine cruise. Why don't the 2 of you join me? It's like, Doc's like, what's your itinerary? Well, we start in Seattle, and then we travel down the coast, San Francisco, and then back. Sounds very nice. Well, she says, I remember you used to live in Seattle. I'm going to be staying there and the area, and do you have any suggestions? She goes, oh, well, I do have a friend that lives up there, and maybe I could ask him for some recommendations for you. And she's like, oh, that would be amazing. I mean, anything to like reel him in and spend time with him and talk to him. So he puts his glasses on to read the menu, and he's having a little trouble. And he takes it off, and he was like, no, I think I just need to get my glasses checked. And he's like, I just can't make out these bottom 2 lines. And she goes, oh, let me help you. And she gets out of her seat. She moves over to Hope's seat, and they're all cozy trying to read the menu together because, she's just being so helpful. She goes, oh, yes, it's pretty fine. She's leaned in. I mean, like, leaned in. Because that's how you help him read the menu. Instead of taking the bill, instead of taking it from him and reading it herself, no. She has to read it with him. Like, you're so obvious, Muriel. Come.
And who sees this?
Oh, yes. Hope walks in and sees this. She stops. She pushes Doc back, grabs his face, and plants a big wet kiss on him. And then she motions to Muriel to get the heck out of her seat. And Doc's just standing there he's sitting there with his mouth wide open, like,
what just happened there?
Yes. And Hope grabs her napkin, puts it very nicely on her lap, and like the cat that ate the canary, just sits there all smug.
A smirk leg. Yeah, she's got a
Muriel
smirk
gives her a
on
dirty look, and she's like, okay.
Yeah.
So, and Doc takes a nice sip of his wine, and we're just going to go about our day. Now, there's the 2 of them. The 3 of them are.
Yes, that's true. The 3 of them.
So we're back to our scenery shot, and it's Mel running again because, she likes to run. And remember, still We're still on the anniversary of her husband's death. We're still in
Mm-hmm.
that day. And the best way for her to clear her head is to run. So she's running, and she runs across this suspension bridge, which is an
Which
actual
is,
place.
yes.
Absolutely
And
gorgeous. It's called
gorgeous.
Capilano Suspension Bridge Park. And
And I would
it's,
be terrified.
oh my gosh. I
I
would
I don't do heights.
I would do it
And
anyway. I would do it anyway.
no, okay, so when we do this trip, you're gonna be doing that by yourself.
That's okay.
All right.
I don't
I'm just
mind.
telling you.
I
Yeah.
do not
Mm.
mind cuz this, I mean, it's beautiful. I don't
It's
even know.
gorgeous.
Oh my
I just
gosh.
don't.
Yeah,
This
this
is,
thing.
as comedian John, late John Burnett would say, this is a nay nay. No,
Really?
this is a nay nay. Not gonna happen.
It's
Mm,
450 feet,
yeah.
and it's very
As I
high
said,
above the trees.
this is a nay nay. Not gonna happen.
Oh, I'm
Mm-mm.
not thrilled with heights, but I would do this because the view is amazing.
They
Plus
have a
plus
lot of amazing views, but this is not one I'm going to be taking with
that's
me.
okay cuz the Vancouver trip that is hoping for next year, um I want to see all the sights. I want to see all the views because I am not a nature girl, but I will look at some nature. Let me tell you. I don't want to go camping, but I want to go look at nature. So
As I said,
it's just
my
beautiful
idea of
up there.
my idea of camping is when room service closes at 11 o'clock. So,
No, I agree. Like I would camp, but I like Mel's version of camping. Like in an airstream or a like I don't want to don't
yeah,
put me in a tent. I'm not sleeping on the
no,
ground. I don't like
no,
bugs. I don't know.
no,
None of that. I have
yeah,
to have like glamping
yeah,
is what they
glamping,
call it.
yeah,
Like I'll do
yes,
glamping, but I'm not doing
yeah,
camping. Anyway,
no,
so she's running, and one of the lovely places that she gets to run, she's beautiful. I would never run, but I would walk. I would walk. I would enjoy the walk. Is this, and it's beautiful. So she's running, and there's the song in the background. Isn't this a
yeah,
Lizzo song? So as
hmm
she's running and she's enjoying the scenery, there's a Lizzo song playing in the background,
and it's a
and
cool song.
it's a fun song.
Yeah,
Now, little tidbit, the music that's picked for the show, some of it is for the show, some of it maybe is written for specifically for the show. A lot of independent artists, a lot of songs that sound perfect for the scene because maybe it was written that way. Some songs, like usually they'll take older songs and maybe somebody covered them, so it's not the original singer. Because music, for if you don't, for people that don't know, when you play a song on a TV show or in a movie, you have to pay for that. There's you have to pay for the because everything's copyrighted, so you have to pay to use music in a show. Now, for original music or something written that's different, it obviously maybe it's cheaper because it's original or written for the show or whatever. But if you're using like an actual song from an actual artist, that's going to be more expensive. Now, they will sometimes, and I know specifically for this show, they do sometimes ask the actors, do you have songs that you would like to use for this? And Alex Breckenridge, who plays Mel, did have some songs in mind. And because this was the second season, it had not even aired yet. When they're filming season 2, nothing has aired yet. So they got picked up for season 2 when they finished season 1 filming it, but no one had actually seen the show yet. So my guess is the budget for, say, seasons 1 and 2 was much smaller than, say, season 5, because, well, season 5 is special effects and all kinds of craziness. But they have to decide how much they're going to spend on music when maybe their budget is a lot smaller early on. So she had wanted a particular song. Now, I know that I just heard something very, very recently saying that she wanted a Shania Twain song. I don't know if it was for this particular scene, but she did push hard for a Shania Twain song, and I think it was more expensive than they could afford for this. And so one of her other choices was this song from Lizzo. And it's a really cute. It starts off as a really, really cute scene.
It is a badass song.
It is. It's a good song and it's a great scene. There's also a lot of like, if you ever go on like Instagram from a lot of the actors for the show, in between scenes, she in particular does a lot of dancing.
Love dancing. She loves to dance.
Always dancing. There's always scenes where, like the one scene, remember when right before the guy came in with the knife and attacked her, and the whole bit with that. They were the cameramen and there's a clip of behind the scenes where they're looking through the window, and you can see her through the window of the clinic, and she's dancing, like just dancing around in the kitchen. And there's scenes where her and a few of the other actors are like on the front yard dancing, or just on the porch just having a good time. Like they really have a good time on this show. Like this seems like a really fun place to work. So Mel's out running, and then she gets home and she is shaking her moneymaker because she's having a good day. She's just singing. She's hair toss and check my nails and all that. She's having a good time. So she's dancing around and having a good time and feeling her groove thing and looking through the mail, and like not a care in the world. Like she finally is having a good day. You know, it's the day of Mark's passing, and she thought, okay, I'm gonna make it. You know, it's gonna be okay. And as she's going through the mail, she like literally, it stops her in her tracks. This one envelope. And she's just staring at it and like almost can't even catch her breath because something has triggered her. And she's just like standing there like she can't even move. Now we're back at the bar, and Jack is doing his thing. It looks pretty busy. And
a busy house.
Yeah, who walks in?
Bad boy himself, Brady.
Yeah, and he puts his hands up like, you know, like, hey.
Come in peace.
Come in peace. And he's like, you know, I need your help. And he's admitting that he should not have gotten involved with the whole Lily thing and all of that, and, you know, with everything. And Jack is listening, but Brady's like, look, you messed up the deal, and I really want you to fix it. Now, at this point, do you think Jack is going to even have anything to say about this? Like, he knows anything to do with Calvin is bad news. So it doesn't matter what Brady says. He is not going to be on board with whatever is going on here. And Jack is still like, Lily deserves to know who she's getting involved with. And he's like, yeah, but is it your job to tell her? And he's like, yeah, because she's a friend, and I'm not going to let one of my friends get mixed up in something that they don't even know what's going on. And then Brady kind of gets cocky, and he's like, yeah, well, you're always such a good friend, aren't you? You know, like, why are you getting your nose involved with it? And Jack is like adamant. He's like, you know what? She's not going to sell the farm to Calvin. It's not going to happen. Like, you just need to like accept that and move on.
I think the thing with Brady is he forgets that Jack is the protector of this town. And if he's going to screw with any of the people that he cares about,
he is not going to let that happen.
He's not going to let that happen.
No.
So that's the thing. And I think Brady, he knows that Jack is protective, but he underestimates.
Oh, very much so. Yeah.
So that's where he gets himself in trouble.
And now, because he's with Calvin, now in his mind, Calvin's got a ton of money. He thinks he's got a ton of power, which clearly he doesn't. It's just it's an illusion, basically. It's an illusion. And Brady is sort of getting his little big britches, thinking he's this bad boy because he's hooked up with Calvin. And he kind of tries to, I don't know, what's the word? Like, put it, kind of throw it at Jack, like put it up in his face. Because he's like, I think me being successful on my own is killing you. Jack is like, if your definition of success is working for a drug dealer, I don't know, maybe you need to like reevaluate yourself.
And the thing about it also is the fact that Jack has always had money in his life.
Yes.
You know, his father is, is a well-established person. You know, he grew up in a middle-class neighborhood, unlike Brady, who did not have anything.
No, Brady was very poor. He always scrounged, always
Right.
nickel and dimed it. I mean, Jack wasn't rich, but he also was a go-getter, and he was successful because he put the work in. Brady is lazy. He wants to do the least amount of work and get everything out of it. Like, he feels like the world owes him a favor. And that's the mindset is very, very different. And that's why Jack's like, yeah, it's not really all about the money. And, because Brady's like, yeah, you're just pissed because I make more money than you. And he was like, yeah, but, what you're doing really isn't work. It's a felony. Like, okay, I could make a lot of money, but I really don't want to go to jail. And so he's, Brady's trying to implore Jack to, like, change his mind about this. And Jack is like, look, I'm going to be straight with you. Did you hear about the body that they pulled out of the woods? And Brady gets, a little uncomfortable. And then that's when Jack pulls out the picture. And he's like, here you go. This is what happens to people who work for Calvin. Do you want that to happen to you? And he goes, well, you don't know that. And he's like, really? He goes, I can't prove it, but I know it. Like, come on. We know and you know that Brady knows who that guy is.
Oh, yeah. He
absolutely knows who that guy is. And it makes him uncomfortable. He, like, turns the picture over, like, gets up. Like, that's not me. That's not going to happen to me because, I'm better. I'm bigger. Calvin trusts me. Calvin, like, he just thinks he's got so much pull and power that does not exist. It's in his head. It's like, just because you want it doesn't make it true. So Jack finally is, it's like tough love. He's like finally at the point that if you don't care about your life, then why should I? I mean, he has said from the beginning, from when he was, in charge of all the guys in Afghanistan and overseas, I've got your back. Whenever you need anything, you can come to me. It doesn't matter if we're home, if we're away, if we're whatever. I got your back. And that's why when Brady first came to town, he was like, you can stay here. Even Preacher didn't like the idea because he knew. Everybody knows what Brady's like. He's a screw up. And even Preacher could see it. But Jack is like, no, I made a vow. I made a promise. And that's Jack. I mean, to the core, he will protect. He will look out for them. He will back them up. He will help them out. But I think at this point, Brady's like screwed him over so many times. He's finally at the point where he's like, you know what? If you don't care about your life, I need to start not caring too. Because why should I care about you more than you do? So Brady gets pissed, and of course he stomps off like a 5-year-old. I'm going to take my toys and go home. Now at the same time, Jack is at the bar, and he kind of glances over, and there's a guy sort of sitting way off to the side. Just, it looks like he's drinking a glass of water. He's not even drinking a beer. And it's Spencer. Now, remember Spencer from the pot camp?
Yeah.
He was sort of with Mel and Jack while they were fixing Calvin's leg. And then when they were trying to leave, they heard this screaming, and they run in. And then oh, my God, we got to deliver this baby. And it's Spencer's girlfriend, Maxine. And they helped her, and they delivered the baby. And then Calvin wouldn't let him leave. They let, Maxine and the baby leave, but they wouldn't let Spencer leave. And Spencer kind of gives him a little nod, and Jack kind of gives him a little nod back, and it's like, okay, we need to have a chat. So Jack's like, okay, gives him a little nod, like, yep, okay, I got you. Now we go to Connie's store. It's a cute little store. It's an adorable. It's like a little corner market. Like every little town has a corner market where you get all your groceries.
It's got everything you need.
Everything. And Preacher walks in, and he's like, he puts the close sign. She shuts the light off, and he was like, it wasn't him. And Connie is so cute. She's like the little mini detective. She's like, I told you.
Yep. She is gobbling this stuff up. I swear to God, she's Angela Lansbury in Murder She
Wrote. She really is. She really is. And he's like, they're combing the woods for evidence. as we speak, like they might still find something. And he's kind of stressed. And she's like, preacher, these woods have swallowed up more bodies and more evidence. I mean, she's been around a long time. She goes, then you can even imagine. And he's like, but still. She's like, it's not like they brought in the FBI. I mean, this is a small town. They have limited resources. And he's like, yeah, but in the military, we always were taught you always have a backup plan. You always have, like, plan B. You got to be ready. You got to be ready and prepared all the time for the worst case scenario. And she was like, okay, then we move to plan B. Like, she's clearly already thought of this. And he's like, well, what's plan B? And she goes, well, just in case, as I said. And then, you know, the chances are slim because she still thinks it's all going to be just fine.
Yeah.
She's like, we build you and Paige an alibi. And he's like, wow. The look on his face is like, who are you? Like, it's like everyone's impression of Connie is like, she's this cute little old lady who sits in the sewing circle. She runs the corner store. She sells bakery goods and she gossips. Right? Like, that's what they know about. Who knew there's an Angela Lansbury buried in there?
I know. She's a detective sleuth.
Oh my gosh. So funny. So we go back to this nice scenery shot, how they transition from scene to scene. We go back to the doc's clinic, and Jack comes in with coffee, and he's looking for Mel. And he's like, is Mel here? And Doc's like, oh, you know what? I told her that she could come in later this afternoon. Because remember, she went home to rest because she had been up since 3:30 in the morning. And was going to take a break, so I guess she went home, she went running, you know, that was her break. And so he was like, oh, well, I bought her a latte. I just wanted to, oh, this is the following day, my bad. This is the following morning. So yesterday was the day that Mark had passed away. This is now the next morning.
Mm-hmm.
So he wants to bring her a latte to say thank you for dealing with him and Charmaine with the whole plan. And he was like, oh, just leave it in the kitchen. It's fine. She'll get it later when she comes in. He goes, no, you know, it's fine. I'll just, any excuse, you know, because they're friends.
Mm-hmm.
They're friends. This is a friendly gesture. He's gonna take it over to her while it's still hot. That's so sweet of him. And Doc's like, okay, now Doc answers the phone and he's like, Doc Mullins. And he's like, uh-huh. And he's kind of being a little cryptic. And he goes, oh, I need an early check-in and transportation to the Bell Street Pier. And, you know, he's kind of planning something. We don't really know what he's got going on.
You know, he's the man of mystery.
Yeah. So Jack shows up at the cabin and, as usual, knocks on the door. No answer. And he's like, knocks again, no answer. Now, this is a small town. Clearly, no one ever locks their door. A strange thing, but, and I think if it was anybody else, he probably would not have walked in.
True.
But I feel like they have such a connection that, I don't know, that he feels like he can walk in. It seems a little weird, but okay, but he's worried about her, and so he can always, you know, say that, oh, I was worried you didn't answer, and I know you're here, your car is, you know, he could have said all of that, you know, to cover it if he had to. Mm-hmm. Like if he walked in on her, I don't know, getting out of the shower or whatever, dancing in the middle of the living room, who knows?
Yeah.
But he walks in and he's like, hey, Mel, it's me. And he's shocked because she's curled up in bed crying with this envelope clutched in her hand. Because when you walk in, remember, it's one big room, so he can see right from the door right across to the bed. And he was like, what?
It's a cottage, so it's a
it's like a studio apartment almost, you know, everything all in one big room. And he was like, what's wrong? Now they have a very sad song playing in the background.
Mm-hmm.
And she's crying. She looks at him. She can't even talk.
Yeah.
She just sort of, with everything she's got, like hands him this crunched up envelope. And he looks at it, and the return address is Pacific Life Insurance. And it's addressed to Mark, to the cabin, which is, you know, it's like a forwarding address sticker. And he's like, oh, Mark's mail, life insurance. And it's like the light bulb goes off. It's like, oh, wow, that's a trigger. That's going to hit her hard. And he looks at it and she sits up and she's just like, it was forwarded from our house in LA. I mean, he doesn't even know what to make of it all. He just sits down.
He's a bit confused.
Yeah. And he's like, it's okay. And she's like, it's not okay. And then she starts like sobbing. She's like, I was wrong. It's not going to be okay. It's never going to be okay. It's just not. And I mean, she grabs him, he grabs her, and he's just holding her because she's just beside herself.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost like the initial he's dead hits her once again. Yeah. It's like she was dealing with it really, really well. And then it just hit her again, like a gut punch.
Yep.
And that's how we ended, on a very sad note.
Yes.
So sad. But, isn't it nice to have those nice, strong arms just hugging you through all of this turmoil and sadness? I mean, it could have been Doc, but aren't you glad it was Jack?
Yes. It was Jack.
Nice. Jack. Always in the right place at the right time, right?
Yes.
Certainly does.
So.
Anyway, well, this was a fun episode.
Yeah. Let's hope it gets. Let's hope things get a little better.
Yes. And episode 8.
Yeah, we've got some good episodes coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The show never disappoints.
No.
You know what I mean? It never disappoints.
Not at all.
It's got great writers and great characters. And as I said, they have depth and they have substance.
Yep.
And
very rich history for each person.
Right.
And if you're not there yet, it's coming.
They don't let you down as far as these characters are concerned. You know what I mean?
No.
So
it's like they take the time to have you get to know each character.
Which is why Charmaine's pregnancy has lasted this long.
Oh my God. Like so many seasons. But I mean, that's the thing. And some people feel like the timeline is a problem because we're just finished episode 7. Okay, so we're 3 months, maybe 4 into where I mean, it's been 2 years, a year and a half of life.
Yep.
And by the time we get to season 5, the end of season 5, it's only 9 months. I mean, these people start the show and 5 years later, their characters aged 9 months and they've aged 5 years. Like, how do you... It's a feat. They are pushing it a little bit. They are fast-forwarding a few months. It's not going to be a few days. It's going to be a few months when the next season comes out. But still, people feel like it should be more. I don't know.
Not doing it. Well, it's so working for them, Certain things I wish they would move faster with, but other things, it's nice to see the progression.
Sometimes you feel like you're like this episode. I feel like we lived 3 days. The last 2 episodes, from the day before when Mel was planning the memorial thing for Mark to this next morning where it's now the day after the day that, the 1 year anniversary. It's been, this is 3 episodes and it's been 36 hours. So we basically got to experience nearly the entire 36 hours with them. Because I don't think we missed much.
Nope, I don't think so.
I mean, we hit all the high points. We were there for all of it. I'm here for it. You're here for it. We're good. Anyway. All right. Well.
Yeah. Well, take care, everybody.
Thank you once again for joining us. And we will be back for another episode of the Virgin River Cafe Rewatch podcast. Have a great day.